All right, so everybody who heard part one is as excited as I am for part two. Kaley, the last conversation was epic, and I can't wait to continue.
I'm so excited to keep this to pick this up.
So, as we were ending the last conversation, I usually book my podcast for about an hour. I'll do a meeting afterward. I was like running over, texting the person, like, I'm running 10 minutes late. So sorry. You didn't see that, but I was having such a good time and the depth of the value that you were giving. I just knew that we had to kind of start again, continue the conversation. And where we last ended was how a man taps into more power. And we
Yes.
had talked about, you know, how he needs to be able to feel safe in himself, and especially when the emotions are coming at him. So let's talk about, how does a man tap into more power? What does that mean?
So I think the first most important thing I have to say, and it's probably obvious, is I'm not a man.
Yes.
And so I will do my best. I will do my best to describe this um, from as being an outsider.
Okay.
Okay,
Sometimes
being an outsider.
it's better advice from the outside, honestly.
Sometimes, right? But I've literally been sitting with this since our last conversation because these are things I'm like deeply involved in on like the one-to-one level, and I've never had a chance to really talk about it publicly. So it's been so exciting. I've been buzzing since our last conversation, and I've been sitting with with this concept. And it's interesting, but I think how a man taps into his power is almost the opposite of how a woman does. So um I'm going to take us through a little Kabbalah if we can do that.
Yes, please.
Okay. So the way I was able to come to this understanding is really in how the world was created. The world was created through a series of breaking vessels, and then that vessel comes together even stronger to hold more light. And then you break the vessel and it holds more light. That's how we grow.
Mm.
We grow as individuals, we break. When we put ourselves back together, we can hold a lot more, right? And what are we holding a lot more of? Our own soul, right? More of the divine comes into us. So now I can do a lot more because I have much more intuition, right? You and I touched on that. I'm much more in touch with my own power. I'm much more in touch with truth, ultimate truth. Okay. So then I was like, well, then what leads to a man breaking his vessel so that he can have more light? What leads to a woman? And this is where it's so crucial to understand the differences of what leads a man to his power. And for a man, it's like the more, just more. You need more doing, more action, more intensity, right? And you had mentioned in our last conversation that like sometimes at the end of a Spartan race, like you just break down crying and like again, can't relate to that at all whatsoever. I might just be like, why am I doing this? I'm going to stop doing this. It's a waste of time, right? Or this feels really good, but it's not necessarily like an emotional connection. And for a man, it's like for a man to expand his vessel, it's like go way beyond your comfort level, go way beyond your boundaries. Things that like it's not like you should take on one new project. That's not enough. That's not enough to expand you. Take on four. And unfortunately, right, we're in a society where like women are trying to match the men. And so they're trying to do that, but it's too much. It's so unnatural, except that we're super powerful. So we'll do it. Like we'll prove that we can, but we're not in our natural state. The men will thrive in that. And as I was like mulling this over, that like that's how a man really expands his vessel. That's how he really gets his power, is like that thing scares me. I got to go do it.
Mm.
That thing makes me nervous. I better step into it. I'm insecure here. Guess better become the master of that, right? Not so for a woman. She doesn't really have to do any of that to grow her vessel, but a man needs that. And as I was mulling over this, I realized my mentor pointed this out to me. She said the Lubavitcher Rebbe said this over and over again. Men would go to him and say, "I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. I can't carry it all." And he'd be like, "Do more. You're not doing enough. Do
Really?
more." That's what he would tell them. That's what he
Okay.
would tell the men. He would guide men. If you're overwhelmed, if you're feeling too stressed, if you're feeling burnt out, you must not be doing enough. And there's wisdom in that.
For sure.
Because if you, right, if someone says like you want to get something done, go to a busy person. They've mastered their time, they've figured it out, right? And the women he would say to the opposite. right? The women would come and say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm exhausted, I don't know how to balance what I have. And you go, you got to get help. You cannot do this alone, right? So the woman has to learn to receive. That's her power, right? And the man has to give more, do more, put yourself out there more, create, do, right? Which is like, I felt myself react to that because I try to teach everyone we're human beings, not human doings. But it is in a man's nature. He needs to put forth. He needs to put forth. And when he's not putting forth, it's like misery, depression, discomfort. And so one other thing we talked about last week is you mentioned like, what if I don't want to sit and journal all my feelings out, you know? But if a man is not feeling productive, is not feeling purposeful, effective, then he's going to have a lot to journal about because he's sitting around depressed. So it's going to work out. Like it'll match. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I agree. And going back real quick, talking about more, at first my body reacted
Ooh.
negatively to the more, right? I'm like,
Okay, I
oh,
was
more, I gotta
wondering. I
do
was like,
more.
I don't know if I'm right. I want to hear your reaction. Okay, go, go. Sorry, sorry.
But then as I like sank and I was thinking about it more, it's not just about the word more, about like more to-dos. It's like moving more, right? So moving my body more, moving my mind more, studying more, loving more, going out there and working out more. And because as you sit as a man idly, if I sit in my office for 8 hours a day, there's no hunt. And
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
made to hunt and we're made to um, go out there and give. And so the more makes sense if you see it not in like a task orientation, like
Right.
I need a
Yes.
longer to-do list. That's not the way I'm hearing it. I'm hearing it as like whatever you're doing now, do more. So one of my mentors helped me create a saying that I use for my coaching, which is epic results come from epic action,
Mm.
right? And I believe that a man needs to be in constant epic action to achieve these epic results because that's what we want. We want to achieve.
Yeah.
And so I totally
Yeah.
understand where you're coming with more, and it makes sense as long as it's not being seen as, oh, just make, 22 to-do lists that you're not present with work, family,
Yeah.
spirituality, whatever that is.
Right. I'm so glad you're clarifying this. And, it's really good for me because, as I said before, it's the first time I'm really talking about this publicly, but I sit with this all the time. And because I'm seeing these women just super transform and they need their men, right? They need their men to go with them. It's not the opposite. It's easy for a man to go, okay, she doesn't need me. Like, no, it's the opposite. She needs you even more now
Mm,
in your power. And so it's very helpful for me to flesh this out with you. So I appreciate that it's like more of a conversation. One of the things that the Lubavitcher Rebbe would put first for that man to go do is like go learn more. Not necessarily build the next business, but you need build that into your schedule,
mhm.
right? Build that into your schedule or some time for self-reflection, right? So it's not that like you're right. It's not a to-do list. And I think what I have observed is that men, and you'll have to tell me if this is true, but do feel really fulfilled when there is movement in many areas,
Yeah.
and that's very challenging because I don't think it comes naturally to men to keep so many like plates spinning. I like that takes a certain mastery, but I do find that men feel really expanded when they've learned to master themselves in a new way, than when they've really pushed themselves.
I'll add a layer to that. I feel that, for example, when I'm in my power, when I'm in movement, that my wife sees me with more admiration, more respect, and she gives to that power so that I become even more powerful, if that makes sense. So if I'm just like depressed and down, this happened after my father passed away 4 years ago. For a year I was just down, and she's like, "Hey, I'm going to give you a year." And after that, like, let's go, let's move, right?
Wow, good for her. That's like
Yeah.
so wise that she could like, I'm gonna give you the space.
Yeah, she said like I'm going to give you the year. I can't imagine what you're going through. It's got to be very, very tough losing your father. And I was very close with my father, and but she's like after the year, like I need my man back. Like I need that power in you back. And when she doesn't see it from time to time, she won't say it like clearly, like, hey, what the heck is going on? But she'll hint at it and she'll code it like, where's my man? Where's the power? Where's the strength in emotion, physically, intimacy wise? Like, where is that? Because that's who I married. And if we don't become that,
Mhm.
then our wives start to disconnect from that because there's attraction to that power, right?
Totally.
There's attraction and there's safety because you mentioned this in the last one. You're like, your woman wants safety. That's like the number one. And so if you're not in power, you cannot give the
Hmm.
feeling of safety to your to your woman, to your wife. And
Yeah.
then there's a massive disconnect, and then there's a rift in the marriage, rift in intimacy, those types of things.
Yeah. So what you're saying is also making me realize that that safety and that sense of power doesn't necessarily come. I, I I'm working it through as I say it. Like it's not about the power that he has over her. It's
Correct.
that he has over himself and in his life. That's
Yes.
the attraction. That's the
Yes.
magnet. It's like,
Yes.
oh, he's in himself. That is safe.
When,
That makes sense. But
yeah,
can I ask you something?
yeah.
How is that for you when she reflects that to you? Like, how does that not how when she reflects, I need my man. I need that source of power. Why, I don't know how to phrase the question. Like, why does that not then break you down? Like, how can a
Yeah.
woman do, and I think this is really, really important because again, as I'm telling you, the women are getting stronger, but we don't want to break down our men.
Yeah.
We don't want to deflate them. How can we build them up? How does that work for you that you don't then feel deflated?
So I think first and foremost, I've been doing so much personal development that even though my wife says it at first, it pisses me off. Like I'm like, what do you want from me? Like I'm here, you
Okay.
have a nice house. Like there's a story I tell that when I first got married, my wife said like I didn't get married to be alone. And I was angry. Nice house, nice car, nice vacations. Like, what's your
Wow.
problem? Like you have everything that you want, and you're still sitting
Wow.
here like bugging me about this. But after a lot of personal work and therapy and courses, all those types of things, I realized all that she's asking is for the best that she's seen of me at some point, right? I've I've raised the bar somewhere at some point in our relationship, and she saw that power, and she's like, I want that. And it's the same thing for me when I'm saying like, hey, I want more intimacy because at some point we had an incredible, sex life, whatever, love, communication. And I'm like, well, I want more because that's somewhere I saw that in you. And so I want that. So at first, still to this day, and what happens is like the time gets shorter where I'm like, oh, like, why is she saying this? But then I'm like, but she's right. I'm
Wow.
not working to the best of my ability to bring, more parnasa home. I'm not as healthy as I can be. I'm not as present as I can be. I'm not as productive as I can be because she's seen that somewhere in me and she believes in me. So I think the communication might be off,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
In how it's being said, but the underlying message is like, I believe in you. I see this in you, and I want this for us. Where are you? Hineni, where are you? Right? I can't believe I forgot his name. But I'll remember. He was on the podcast. He wrote an amazing book called Where Am I? And it talks about the power, like how to be more powerful, how to um, be present. And
Is his
when I
name
when I
Moshe something?
what?
Moshe something?
No, I'll find it. I promise
Okay,
I'll
okay, go ahead, go
find
ahead.
it.
Sorry.
I'm gonna look at like the episodes and figure it out. But and as I was talking to him and interviewing him, I realized that like the where am I that God speaks about, is a reflection of like where am I personally? Like who am I? What am I doing? And when my wife says that to me, what she's saying is, where are you? Where is your
Mm,
heart? Where is your mind? And what I wrote down when you said power, and you said it, so well, it's not like I want to have power over her, but
mm,
it's where's your conviction? Where's your confidence?
mm. Oh. Yes. Yes.
spiritually, mentally, everywhere. Where is that? Because I've seen that somewhere in you and I want more of that. And that gives me more safety.
Yes. That's so huge. That's so huge. I really appreciate how honest you were about like there's first a reaction,
Yeah.
right? And you said like maybe there's just a miscommunication. I don't know. I'm just being curious. Like because I'm coaching so many women, um, I would just I would love to find a really nice, effective way for them to say, "Where are you?" You know, in Hebrew
Yeah.
it's ayeka. It's a much deeper than efuata. Where are
Yeah.
you? That's a whole different thing. Where am I? I'm in the kitchen. What do you want from me? You know? But it's ayeka is like, where's your conviction? Where are you? Where is your essence?
Yeah.
Where's your drive? You know? Um, yeah, that's really interesting. I think it's really a delicate balance, but I think it's amazing that you can kind of regroup and say, "Oh, she's right." You know, and I think that that would be that is the power that is a way men can tap into their power is just be honest and real. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I actually don't know where I am. She's asking, and I'm not sure either. Let me be real about that.
And we get lost. And so it's sorry, the book is Dr. Leonard Felder.
Oh, okay.
And it's Here I Am is the book. Here I am using Jewish spiritual wisdom to become more present, centered, and available for life. And it just opened my eyes. And I think like, Ayeka, what you said, and like is exactly what my wife is asking of me,
Mhm.
right? Like when she says, I need you around more, it's not like she needs me to wash more dishes or help with the kids more. It's like, I need to feel you more. I need to
Mhm.
see eye to eye with you more. And I think that like when you talk about power in man in the vessel, I feel like man is afraid to break the vessel, to go above and beyond, to do more, as the Lubavitch Rabbi said, because he feels like he's going to lose himself instead of actually being able to find himself.
Yes. Yes. You said it so well. So well. And I think for the woman, the fear of being the receiver, right? That's where we're afraid we're going to lose ourselves.
Mhm.
Because I'm so good at creating and I'm so good at doing and I'm so good at taking the space. If you're not going to show up, I'll do it. Like the women know how. They have to. They have to balance it with all the kids and the career and all the things. They they're survive we are survivors, right? We are warriors. And so we have all of that built into us. And I was hearing, you know, a really beautiful talk yesterday, and someone was referencing the book that I haven't read, full disclosure. I think it's called Arrow Circle Spiral. Have you
Okay.
read this, heard of
No,
this?
never.
And so it's really, she was saying it describes the difference between, you know, masculine and feminine. And and it's easy to think that man is the arrow. He sees a goal, he goes for it. He aims in a direction, he goes that direction. The woman is the circle. We are cyclical, right? We are cyclical. We have a cycle, our hormones, everything. And the day to day, our hormones are shifting, month to month, right? So we are the circle. But it doesn't just end there. It's the spiral because we have that those times where we are also in an arrow. We can go in that like I'm aiming for this, I'm going for it. And then there are times when we need to be soft and we need to be receiving. And I think that's where it's very scary, where if I'm not filling the space and I'm just receiving, I have to trust that he's gonna do it. He's holding it, he can get there. And I think that's where that's like it's like the opposite. She's scared to lose herself. Both of them require a lot of vulnerability and being willing to say, like, okay, I'm gonna let myself kind of let go here. And I never thought about this. You're bringing me a new insight here that in the expanding himself, taking on more. I'm going to master something new. I'm afraid to do it because I might lose myself. He's going to go there. I never considered that, but like that, it's actually vulnerable for him to step
Mhm.
into new things,
Yeah, 100%.
and that's
Because
how we grow.
yeah, and there's just because you're used to doing what you're doing, and there was success in doing it that way, so you
Mhm.
don't want to change. I want to jump into, um, because one of the biggest reasons I had you come to the podcast was this idea of healing, right? Using the mind. And so you talked about like creating the vessel to heal. I want to touch on that because I'm sure that there's some men who are listening who have pain somewhere, something's going on. And I want to talk about like how do we heal using our mind. Now, I think that presence is a masterful concept for healing,
Mhm.
like being, here I am and where are you? Like all those concepts of being present.
Mhm.
But if you can give us like a synopsis on like what that means in creating the vessel to heal and creating space for God, for the divine, for the creator to come in to help with the healing.
Um, a synopsis, goodness. Um, you
If not, we're
know,
gonna do like episode 3 and 4.
yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. This has been incredible. It's exhilarating. Um, I think what's most important to acknowledge in terms of the healing and anybody listening who's, struggling with symptoms, especially, chronic pain is really good, especially with men. We're seeing a lot of chronic pain and heart conditions. That's huge, from a mind body perspective, we can outline in another episode like how that aligns and why that's happening so much for men. But um, we have to understand that the what the body is communicating is for a reason, and we don't want to come into conflict with it and into tension with it. And so, what I want to be able to do is say, my body's communicating. What is it telling me? What's going on here? What's the message here? And especially for a man who is wanting to feel powerful and useful and purposeful, right? It like to then have the body speak up, that's first of all like a huge threat to the psyche, to the ego. Is like, am I going to be able to provide all these things, right? And so to realize there's a communication happening and it's very important and it comes from a deep soul place. It's not, oh, I need to change my diet. Yes, do that, nourish your body, but to really realize that there's something deeper happening. And that's either, and each person has to go through this exploration on their own, but or in my course, but but it's is this a course correct? Is this pulling me closer to my ultimate purpose in life? Is this like, am I actually afraid, right? We talked about the fear of stepping into new things. And is that what my body's processing? My body, if I don't face the fear myself, if I'm not processing that fear on my own, which the easiest way to do it is just call it out. You might be hitting a punching bag. Like,
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm going to punch it out, whatever it takes. But maybe the fear of me stepping into my light, the fear of me taking on this new role, the fear of me, um, taking on a family, right? Being the leader of a family and actually showing up for that. That's too scary. Oh, look, my body's speaking up. Oh, look, there's some pain keeping me from showing up for my family, right? So then I'm not the one who failed as my body stopped me. So this obviously is not the same, like every circumstance is very different and we have to explore that. But um to understand how then the mind can heal that is and how you build that vessel is then you we have to do that deeper exploration by acknowledging this isn't just a random thing. This isn't, oh, it runs in my family. There's something much deeper happening. And to start to explore what is the impact of this symptom? That's one of my first questions I ask when people, when I get on the phone with people is like, well, what's happening in your life? How's it changed? Not just, and it might be, I lost my job, might be, I moved home. Well, then what were the benefits of that? What good came from that? Or what was about to happen? I was about to get married. I was about to take a job. What was about to happen and that your body suddenly spoke up right there, you know? And I think that, to be able to really face that with openness and with some honesty, it doesn't mean all of a sudden the pain will go away. By the way, sometimes it might. You might go like, "Oh, I am really scared to take on that role. All right, let's do this." And then your pain might go away. I've seen that happen multiple times,
Wow.
right? Um, and it might not, right? It might even get louder because maybe you're doing it, but still terrified. So then we need to make sure that you have a mechanism to process that, to move those feelings through.
Love it. And
This
let
makes
me ask,
sense?
let me ask, yeah, for sure. But and I also want to ask on the other end, if I'm somebody, if my wife is chronically sick or something's going on, what can I do
Hmm.
as a man to be able to help create the vessel, help with the healing, help create that space for the Creator, Divine God, whatever you call it, to come in and help the healing.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. I'll give two levels, okay? So intro level is just um, not. not furthering any conversation around illness or symptoms because our cells are always listening. And
Mm.
so then it's just going to continue to create symptoms. Now, that doesn't mean we ignore that she's going through something. We pretend like everything's okay. It's, what do you need? How are you feeling today? Is there something I could do to make it easier without saying, how bad is the migraine? Right?
Yeah,
Because then we're just engaging her in continuing to talk about it. And then we're just continuing the problem. Right?
yeah,
So, the intro level of what you can do for a loved one when you're watching them with symptoms is just being like showing up without um you know what does this mean, what is the diagnosis, what's the prognosis, what are we going to do about this, like without your own reactions and without continuing the conversation around illness, right? The next level would be to really hold space for what my her body. And it sounds weird because like who am I to assess that, but especially for a spouse, like you know what's actually going on. What might her body be, you know communicating? I had a call with a woman this week. Husband's totally out to lunch and has been for years. She's doing everything on her own, and she told me the only time I ever get any help is when I end up in the hospital.
mm, sheesh.
So it's like her body's on point, you know but that's really hard, so as a loved one, especially a spouse, when you're in like such close proximity, kind of start to notice the pattern, and then see if you can initiate a loving, really compassionate, open conversation about like, I'm noticing this pattern, or since these symptoms started, or since you've gotten sick, I realize that this is what happens. Did you actually need some extra help that I didn't pick up on? Or is this maybe this is, did you not to feel you could ask me for affection? Would it feel comfortable or safe for you if I would? That was a big thing for me. It took me a long time to put those two together, but pain, I realized, was my need for affection.
Mm.
And I felt so vulnerable just asking for that. Just asking for a hug felt so vulnerable to me.
Sorry, when you said pain, like physical pain?
Physical pain. Yeah,
So you would get physical pain?
I would be intense physical pain, like legs on fire. And
Uh-huh.
the only thing that would get me any relief was like just like squeezing my arm. Any
Uh,
morphine didn't help, okay?
yeah,
Like it was just horrific. And it would just, it's not even like a hug, just like you'd have to squeeze so tight. I would ask like just with all your might, just like squeeze my arm or squeeze my leg. And like that, the only thing, like just a few seconds of relief, right?
wow.
It took me a while to start to go like, is my body asking for affection? Like it took me a while to put that together, and I started to realize, okay, when the pain first starts, I have to learn to ask for that for myself. It was really hard.
Mm.
It was really hard, right? So, and at the partner I had at the time, I wasn't married at the time, but the partner I had at the time was able to hold a lot of space for that and just go like, you can ask anytime. And I had to learn like he might not be available for the hug or whatever it is, but I had to learn to ask. And so he was really able to kind of like help with that and just be able to say, I'd so much rather give you the hug
Yeah,
before you're in pain, just ask anytime. I'm right here.
yeah,
And I understand everybody's different, but to start to kind of create a safe space to have these conversations and go, there's a pattern here, right? Or every time, something comes up with one of the kids, that's when the I don't know, ear infections or something. And like, is there something that's uncomfortable to hear in our lives right now? And
mm,
maybe we need to adjust together. Can we do this together? And something very important to acknowledge, just I love that you asked this question. Illness affects the whole family. The diagnosis goes to the whole family. It's not
yeah,
just that person. And it's happening in a system. And oftentimes one person's symptoms are processing something for the whole family. So for us to all step into that is like that's going to bring the quickest, most profound and complete healing.
yeah, yeah. That's beautiful because um, your need for affection coming out in a physical manifestation. I never thought I'd say that line. Uh, I can see it in other areas where people just don't ask for what they want and what they need.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe like my father passed from Parkinson's and dementia. I believe
Mm,
I'm not a doctor. I believe it was because he didn't ask for what he wanted. My mom had a
mm,
stroke. I believe it was because she didn't like express what she needed, what she was going through. Like for me, they
Mm.
were all physical manifestations of some type of massive stress, something going on. And because they're
Yes.
from the old country where you don't talk, you don't go to therapy, they kept it all in, they didn't say anything, and it like pop, something exploded in the brain, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
No, this is
um,
very real. And we can actually prove, like we can show these pathways in the body how that happens. It's very real. It's so profound that you can see that.
yeah. And as you mentioned on part one, things that people can do to start healing, to start being present, to start getting over the pain. Listen back to part number one if you forgot that that's what we spoke about, because I think it's very, very important.
Or you
Um,
somehow landed here first.
yeah,
That'll
exactly.
help a lot. It'll make a lot
Yeah.
more sense.
Yeah, go to part one.
Yeah.
And I think that like you talk about, in the last part, we talked about power and softness. And I think that in order to live an incredible life of health and of peace, you need both sides, like the yin and the yang. You need that power and you need that softness, and you need to bring them together in different moments, right? Or use them in different moments in different balance to be able
Right.
to just not just be okay, but to thrive and live an epic life and have an incredible marriage and be an incredible parent, all those things put together. Because today, more than ever, I hear everybody complaining just about
Yeah.
everything, right? And
Everything.
and every time I complain, I look at times in my life where like, ooh, like this is nothing, right? This is nothing. And so
Yes.
I'd like to say, stop complaining, start creating, create the vessel to heal, create the conversation to be able to get out what you need and what you want. Kaley, what would you like, as we start wrapping this up, what would you like to tell the listeners? We've had two incredible parts of this to be able to do so they tap into the power, they can create, and they can heal what's needed to be present.
Every time you're like, just what's that one thing? I'm like, what do you mean I want to say everything? Um,
Say it all, say it all. It's fine.
okay, well, so I will say it all. I'll do the wrap up, but first there was something that you made me realize. Really, the whole conversation that we're having is this idea in Kabbalah and Hasidus that that is described as being the mishpia versus the makabel, being the it's like the influencer versus the receiver, right? And we
Mhm.
kind of talked about the woman being able to receive, and we have to, like you're saying, you got to we all have to be able to do both. And I think the wisdom, the reason that going on the journey of healing, whether we're talking physically or emotionally, and they're all connected, is so important, is so that you can start to learn when to step into each role. When am I supposed to step into action? And when is that just my own need for control or my own ego? And here's my place for softness, and I'm going to let God come in. I'm going to let the man come in, right? And take over and let myself be taken care of here, or even notice that, oh, I was being taken care of and I just was exerting my own stuff, right? So that's really the dynamic, and there's a great essay about that from Sarah Udit Schneider. Um, the book is on the masculine and the feminine. I forget the exact title, but there's a whole essay on this, and it comes from the Gemara about the moon versus the sun. Profound, going much deeper on what is it, how do you balance these aspects of yourself in your own life, what you just described, right? Because it's really a mastery, and you just got to start somewhere. And so, in terms of wrapping up, what I want to say, I witness miracles every day. And you talked about complaining. Like we we have so much more available to us, both externally and internally, than we could even begin to imagine. And that's because the divine is not just running through us, okay? That is true, but also because the world was created for us to be part of this unfolding. And so I want each person listening to know that your own journey, your own path, your own strengthening of your own vessel and stepping into your power doesn't just transform your life. It transforms your family's life and it's transforming the whole world. Every single person who steps into the journey that we talked about in these two episodes is making it I'm like my body's like having a huge reaction to this. It's like yes, 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 right? it creates more space for the next person to do it, and the next person to do it, and the next person to do it. And then it's happening. You're doing it in your microcosm, but it's actually happening on a global scale, that this rectification and this healing is happening globally,
Mm.
right? The rebalancing of the masculine and the feminine, which by the way means that then the woman does rise up to come face to face with the man. That's part of this, right? So that is going to happen as each of you listening, as each of us, myself included, we continue to do this work. And so you actually have this immense power in you. I know it's scary, but when you step into that, you're changing the entire world.
Love that. So, gentlemen, check out Kaley Z. We're going to go ahead and put all the information in the show notes. Kaley, I'm so happy we did a part two. If we were
Me
able to like
too.
wrap up and bring to closure what we were speaking about. I appreciate you. I honor you. As I said before, may you be blessed with strength and courage to keep doing the work that you're doing in healing people,
Amen.
and giving to the
Oh,
world. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for uh,
oh,
for being here and saying yes to part two, especially.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I mean, I'm so glad you asked part one too. Thank you. And I want to thank you and all the men who are out here doing this work. It is We need you. We need you. We need you. I cannot emphasize it enough. And there's a lot more voices like yours today than we realize. And it just may it continue. You should be blessed with the energy to keep this going
Amen.
and inspire others to also be doing the same. So, and I just want to give a blessing to everybody listening. I was taught once that if you were given a miracle, you have more power to give that blessing to others. So anybody listening, if you need healing, you should be blessed with complete healing on all levels immediately.
Amen. 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 Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the next episode of the Tribesmen podcast.